Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 most expensive cards, most likely from Crown Zenith. Now, we have to cheat a little bit here, very simply because Crown Zenith isn't out yet. But V-Star Universe is out in Japan. Now, admittedly, these are not exactly the same set. We've talked about that before on this channel. Crown Zenith is very much a catch-up set with a bunch of Japanese stuff, or cards that have been out in Japan, that we haven't got. Whereas V-Star Universe is very much a reprint set, reprinting a bunch of staples and all of that good stuff. But they're going to have the same, with a few exceptions, they're going to have the same fancy cards, the same secret rares and all of that, which are going to be the cards that attract the value anyway, so with a couple of exceptions, the most expensive cards should be roughly the same. Now, a couple things to note before we get going. There is one card that makes a Japanese top 10 that will not be making the English top 10. And that is the Charizard, the V-Star. That would come in at 8th place on the list, except it's not going to be on the list because it's not in Crown Zenith, because we got it in the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. Would make the list, isn't going to be on there. But there might be a couple of cards that we have that sneak their way onto the list that won't be on the V-Star Universe list because Japan's already had them. So the Precious Collection Pikachu promo I showed you the other day that I am still absolutely stunned somehow found its way into Crown Zenith. I did not see that coming, and I'm willing to bet pretty much nobody else did either. That is in Crown Zenith, and it's a secret rare, and there is a chance that that does actually make it onto the top 10 list, but it wasn't in the set in Japan, so I can't say one way or the other. So I've taken Charizard off the list because it's not in our set. You may wish to add the Pikachu onto the list, but I don't have enough information now to tell you whether it's going to get on the list or not. Also, please do bear in mind, any prices here should be given as a super rough guide. Prices aren't going to be the same in Japan and over here. The order is likely to be very, 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 very similar, but I can't guarantee the prices will. Take it as a rough guide, not a guarantee of price. And I will say it makes a very, very neat top 10. So there are cards like Leafeon V-Star, Mewtwo V-Star, Hisuian Zoroark, and Gardenia's Vigor, all of which just miss out. They all actually have the exact same price over in Japan at the moment, at least roughly speaking, looking at the sites I'm looking at. And yet, all of them came in at joint 11th, which I love. That makes me so happy, because it's neat. I like a nice, neat top 10. Having a nice, neat top 10 makes me very happy indeed. So if they would have been joint 11th, what's number 10? Number 10 is the gold version of Dialga, which is coming in at around about 6,000 yen. Now, 6,000 yen, we're talking somewhere in the region of $45. Not hideously expensive, but starting to get up there. And this one's really easy. It is a gold card. These gold cards over in Japan have very, very low pull rates. However, of all of the gold cards we've seen, this is by far the least playable, so it makes perfect sense that this would end up being the cheapest of them. It's still Dialga, which is a box legendary. It's still a very, very, very popular card, but it's the least playable and the least good of them, so it comes in at number 10. In at number 9, we've got Gold Palkia, and it's a very similar kind of thing. Gold card. Now, this comes in, I should say, at 6,300 yen, so it's only a tiny bit above. We've gone up to 4,750, and basically what we're talking about here is a gold card of a very low pull rate, and it's a popular box legendary Pokemon, and it's kind of playable, but not quite to the level the other two are, although arguably it is actually nowadays. I don't know, good card, playable, gold, low pull rate, box legendary. I will say it's definitely not as popular as the other two gold Pokemon, and to be fair, playability isn't all that when you get up to the really high-end alternate arts, but it's still a very good card. Now, in at number 8, we got Friends in Sinnoh at 6,500 yen, which means we've crept up here to $49, and this is one of those things where this is definitely not a playability. Because Friends in Sinnoh is a terrible, 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 terrible card. It's a draw free. That's what it does. It draws free cards. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. That is definitely not good. In fact, I would go as far as to say that is absolutely flat out terrible. But it's fine, because it's a beautiful card. It's got a bunch of different characters on, all from the Sinnoh region, all from Gen 4, and it's wonderful artwork, and that's why people love it. And in at number 7, I could say a very similar thing about Friends in Hisui, which comes in at just a tiny bit more. We've snuck up here to 7,000 yen. You'll notice we're going pretty small increments as it stands. That's about $53 on today's exchange rate. And it's a very, very similar thing. Terrible card, but a very cool supporter card featuring artwork of a bunch of characters. But this time we're talking Legends Arceus rather than your traditional Gen 4 Diamond and Pearl. And essentially, people over in Japan have decided that this is a bit of a cooler card. Quite possibly because it's got Irida on it. Because at the end of the day, same card in terms of functionality, same effect. Very similar in terms of design. Same in terms of pull rate. It's just whether you prefer Sinnoh or Hisui. The people have spoken, and as it stands at the moment, it's Hisui. But you know what's more popular than any of them? Cynthia. Cynthia's more popular than them, because in at number 6 we've got Cynthia's Ambition, and we've got a bit of a bigger jump here. We're coming in at 8,800 yen, which means we're talking around about $66. And this one's nice and simple. It's Cynthia. Cynthia is one of the most popular characters in Pokemon, and the artwork here is absolutely flat out redonkulous, beyond stunning. It really is an absolutely ridiculous card. And it's actually a really playable card that draws a bunch of cards. You draw until you got 5 cards in your hand, but if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you draw until you get 8 cards in your hand instead. Obviously with these ones, if I've got the English version like I do for Cynthia's Ambition, it's going up on the screen as well. Fact of the matter is, Cynthia is super duper duper popular. Everybody loves Cynthia. And artwork wise, I think this one is stunning. And then you notice a satchel around Gastrodon, and it becomes even cooler. But the fact of the matter is, everyone loves Cynthia. This is a good card, and it's never not going to be in this top 10. In at number 5, we've got the gold version of Arceus, and you'll notice that this is quite a bit bigger. We're up to 11,000 yen here, which isn't quite double the ones at the bottom of the list, but it's not a million miles away. How come Arceus is so much more expensive? It's up at $83. Oh, I can answer that one for you. It's Arceus. Arceus is extremely popular, more so than Dialga and Palkia. It's the deity, it's a god Pokemon. And also, it's really, really playable still. And that's why we get here. It's slightly awkward because I'm kind of falling in love with Akira Igawa's art style, and I kind of want to start an Akira Igawa collection, but the problem is these 4 gold cards are all done by Igawa, and am I really going to buy all 4 of them in Japanese and in English? Maybe. Maybe I'm going to go there, but I rather suspect, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm probably not, because I don't have infinite money, which is a little bit sad. And then in at number 4, we got the last of the gold cards. That is Giratina, coming in at 13,800 yen. So again, we've got that little bit of a jump coming in. That's $104. Why is this so expensive? And I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit like what I said about Arceus. Because it's Giratina. And Giratina is just hyper popular. And it is a very playable card, although arguably not as playable as something like Arceus. And essentially, when you've got these cards like the gold cards that are very, very expensive, and they've all got the same kind of pull rate, it really comes down to popularity and playability. But because there are much cheaper ways of being able to get these cards, a lot of the time it stops being about playability, and it just turns into a bit of a popularity contest. And that's kind of where we are, honestly. It's a bit of a popularity contest. And Giratina won. In at number 3, we've got Pikachu, and look, everybody loves Pikachu. Pikachu is extremely popular. But there's a story behind this card. Oh, I should actually tell you the value really before we go any further, shouldn't I? It's a little bit rude if I don't. So this card I've got down coming in at around about 14,300 yen, which isn't much more than Giratina, incidentally. You're talking about $108. So a little bit of a difference, but not a huge amount. The thing to remember about this Pikachu is it only comes as a set of 9 cards. There are 2 kinds of God Packs. There's your traditional God Pack, which is to say 9 secret rares. And then there's the other kind of God Pack, which is just this 9 card set. And that's the only way to get this Pikachu. Now, I have heard from a number of different sources that essentially this is much easier to get than the traditional God Pack. That actually this God Pack has much higher pull rates, but it's still got extremely low pull rates, and this is the only way to get the Pikachu. Fun little fact that the other 8 cards in the God Pack are exactly as rare as Pikachu, and none of them come even close to the top 10 list. It is just the Pikachu, and really the way this seems to be being treated is essentially, if you pull the God Pack, hey, you've got the really cool, really expensive, really rare Pikachu, etc. Oh yeah, and have these 8 bonus cards as well. Either way, with a ridiculously low pull rate, this is always going to be a very expensive card. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens when this is in Crown Zenith, because this is the one card on this list that I could see being very, very different. All the others on this list are going to end up being among the most rare and popular. But if Pikachu's not in a God Pack and the pull rate is significantly higher, this is one that could actually be an awful lot cheaper. In at number 2, we've got Elesa, comes in at around 17,000 yen. So we've got another little bit of a jump here. And 17,000 yen, you're talking about $128. And this is just a popularity thing. People love Elesa. Some of the female characters end up having very, very, very expensive cards. That is exactly what's going on here. I can't give you a better explanation. And it's not because Elisa's not a playable card, because it absolutely is. But not like it was. A lot of Mew decks are going away from it nowadays. So it's not a playability thing. And it's a super rare rather than a special art rare. It is just a very, very, very popular character in a very cool card, and I'm afraid that's the best explanation you're getting. Speaking of which, in at number 1, by a mile, it's Irida at 25,000 yen. Much higher than any other card on this list. That's coming in at $189. Yeah, that's a very big jump. That's the biggest jump we see on this list, and for a very good reason. The jump from Elesa to Irida is basically the same as the jump from number 10 to number 3. That's what we're looking at here. It is a huge jump. It's number 1, and it's number 1 by a mile. And the reason is really simple. Irida is one of the most popular characters in Pokemon. And if you want any proof of that, just go and look at the price of Irida cards. And then you're going to have your answer. It's as simple as that. Adaman, nowhere near. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. If you go over to Japan, the Adaman full art, which I did pull from a set, really, really quite cheap and easy to get. Irida, no, it was a double set, so it wasn't the same set, but it was the equivalent set. So we had Space Juggler and Time Gazer. Time Gazer was Adaman, Space Juggler was Irida. Yeah. It's not even close. The Irida card, which I didn't pull, unfortunately, super duper duper crazy expensive. But the English version of that Irida is way cheaper than the Japanese version. You're talking like $50 rather than $300. That's going to be the case here. This Irida is still going to be one of the most sought after and expensive cards in Crown Zenith. But we've seen this before many, many times. This is not going to be a $200 card in English. It is almost certainly going to settle at like a $50 card. And that's a very good thing for us. It still should be among the very top cards of the set. It's just going to be an awful lot cheaper. And for us, ladies and gentlemen, that is a very, very good thing indeed. So there we go. Those are the most expensive cards from V-Star Universe. I expect the list to look very, very similar when we come over into English. Like I've said, there are some things like the Precious Collectibles Pikachu which may get onto the list, and there are some things like the Pikachu which is in a God Pack in Japan which might not make the list because it's likely to be a little bit easier to find over here. But we don't know. This is just conjecture. But I do expect this list to largely hold true. Yes, there is a fair bit of conjecture here in terms of some of the Pikachu cards, but I expect Irida to be number one. I expect some of the gold cards to be on the list. Elisa should be on the list. Friends in Hisui and Friends in Sinnoh should be on the list. These are all cards that I expect to be on this list. I do expect it to be very, very similar. But now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these cards you want when Crown Zenith comes out. Tell me anything you want to tell me. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel. You can get some bonus podcasts, you can join a Discord where we chat about Pokemon and a bunch of other stuff, really anything you want. And you can get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely James Siapinski, who's been one of our supporters for a little while now and seems to be a very lovely person indeed. So thank you for your support, and thank you for being a very lovely person indeed. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.